They say wisdom begins in silence, but few people realize how rare silence truly is. Most of the world reacts before it understands. A single word, a single glance, a single notification is enough to set emotions on fire. Someone cuts us off in traffic, we react. Someone questions our worth, we defend. Someone disrespects us, we explode. And in those moments, we lose the very thing that separates strength from weakness, the ability to wait. There is an ancient rule known by monks, philosophers, warriors, and kings: never react first, because the first to react always loses control. The first to raise their voice loses respect. The first to act without thought becomes the servant of impulse. In every argument, in every conflict, there's a silent test happening: who will break first? And most people fail it. Think about it. How many times have you said something in anger that you later regretted? How many times have you sent a message, a reply, or a comment just to prove a point, only to realize that silence would have spoken louder? How many times have you felt the storm inside you win while your peace lost? The truth is, every time you react without awareness, you give away your power. And the world is full of situations designed to make you give it away. A colleague at work criticizes you in front of others and your pride rises. Your partner misunderstands your intentions and you rush to defend yourself. A stranger insults you online and suddenly you're fighting ghosts through screens. It's exhausting because emotional reactivity feels powerful in the moment, but powerless in hindsight. You win the argument but lose the inner calm. You make your point but lose your peace. There's a story of a samurai who once faced an arrogant warrior known for provoking his opponents. The samurai stood still while the warrior screamed insults, mocked his family, and even spat on the ground in front of him. But the samurai never responded. After a while, the warrior, frustrated and exhausted, left. A young student asked the samurai, "Master, why didn't you react?" He replied, "If someone gives you a gift and you refuse to take it, to whom does the gift belong?" That is the essence of the ancient rule: when you don't react, the chaos remains theirs, not yours. By the end of this audiobook, you'll understand this rule not just as an idea, but as a way of being. You'll learn how to train your mind to pause when others panic, how to stay calm when others crumble, how to lead when others lose control. Because emotional mastery is not about suppression, it's about ownership. It's not about pretending not to feel, it's about deciding when and how to respond. There's a hidden strength in those who remain composed under pressure. They're not cold, they're in command. They don't speak less because they fear, they speak less because they choose their words like arrows. They don't react because they know every reaction is a message to the mind: you're not in control. This audiobook will take you deep into the psychology of reactivity, how your brain hijacks you, how emotions override reason, and how to reclaim control in moments that matter most. You'll discover the 4 levels of emotional mastery, powerful techniques like the stop method, and ancient practices to strengthen the calm within you. But most importantly, you'll learn that not reacting first isn't weakness, it's strategy. Because while others burn energy proving themselves, the calm one observes, learns, and responds with precision. When you don't react first, you see clearly. When you don't react first, you think deeply. When you don't react first, you lead quietly, and that's the kind of leadership the world listens to. If you're ready to become that kind of person, one whose peace cannot be stolen, whose mind cannot be manipulated, and whose heart remains still even in the storm, then this journey is for you. Take a deep breath. Slow down, because from this point on, your greatest victories will not come from reacting faster, but from mastering the pause. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe to Prestige Audiobooks, where every day we bring you new mind and emotional mastery books designed to transform the way you think, feel, and live. If this audiobook helps you grow, don't forget to like, share, and leave a comment, because your support keeps this knowledge alive for others who need it too. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1. The Hidden Cost of Reactivity. It starts small. A sigh, a raised eyebrow, a sharp tone. Then, before you even realize it, your body is tense, your heart is racing, and words are leaving your mouth that you'll wish you could take back. That's how emotional reactivity begins quietly, invisibly, and then suddenly, it owns you. We often imagine that losing control looks dramatic, shouting, breaking things, storming off. But in truth, it begins in much subtler ways. It begins the moment you feel attacked and need to defend, the moment you feel unseen and need to prove, the moment you feel disrespected and need to restore balance. Every time that need takes over, you are no longer choosing, you're reacting. There's a story of a young man named Arif who worked in a corporate office. He was smart, disciplined, and ambitious. But one thing always got in his way: his temper. One afternoon, his manager criticized a project he had worked on for weeks. The tone wasn't harsh, but Arif's mind didn't hear feedback, it heard humiliation. His chest tightened, his pulse spiked, and before he knew it, he snapped back with sarcasm in front of the entire team. The room fell silent. His manager simply nodded and walked away. For the rest of the day, Arif replayed that moment in his mind, the looks from his co-workers, the embarrassment that followed, and the realization that a few seconds of reaction had undone months of effort. That's the hidden cost of reactivity. It doesn't just damage relationships, it damages reputation. No one remembers the pressure you were under, the injustice you felt, or the trigger that set you off. They only remember how you behaved when you lost control. Now imagine this happens in your personal life. A relationship argument begins over something small, a forgotten message, a tone that sounded distant, a moment of misunderstanding. Instead of pausing, you react. You raise your voice, you defend, you accuse. And suddenly the argument is no longer about what happened, it's about how you reacted. You see, every emotional explosion has an aftershock. You say things you don't mean. You hurt people you care about. You try to apologize later, but apologies can't always erase the memory of how your reactivity made someone feel unsafe. Reactivity is like pouring fuel on small sparks. The sparks themselves aren't dangerous, but your reaction can turn them into a fire that burns trust, time, and peace. Think of how much energy we waste reacting. You check your phone and see a message that bothers you, your mind starts spinning. You start imagining what they meant, why they said it, what you should say back. Hours go by. You haven't solved anything, but you've lost focus, mood, and calm. You didn't just react to the message, you reacted to your own thoughts. That's how reactivity works. It traps you in invisible loops. The mind starts a conversation with itself that never ends. And each time you replay the scenario, you train your brain to react faster next time. It's like muscle memory, but for emotions. Every angry response, every defensive reaction, every anxious reply is a rehearsal for future loss of control. The more you practice reactivity, the better your brain gets at it. And over time, reacting becomes your default identity. You start justifying it. That's just how I am. I can't help it. They made me do it. But deep down, you know that's not true. You can help it, you just haven't trained yourself to pause yet. There's another story, a simple one but powerful. A monk was once insulted by a traveler who mocked his robes and called him a fool for living in simplicity. The monk didn't respond. Later, his student asked, "Master, didn't his words hurt you?" The monk smiled and said, "Only if I choose to carry them." Reactivity is the habit of carrying every insult and every judgment, every misunderstanding on your shoulders even long after it's over. And when you carry that weight, you can't move forward freely. Imagine a leader in a high-stakes meeting. Everyone's watching, tensions are high, and one team member suddenly challenges their decision. The leader who reacts impulsively loses authority. They appear emotional, unstable, and insecure. But the leader who pauses, breathes, and responds calmly commands the room. Without saying much. Control is not in the words, it's in the composure. That's why the ancient rule of not reacting first isn't just about staying calm, it's about preserving power, because power is not in speaking louder, it's in speaking last. It's not in showing emotion, it's in mastering when and how to reveal it. It's not in quick replies, it's in thoughtful responses that move the situation forward, not backward. Every reaction trains your brain. When you react with anger, your brain learns to defend. When you react with fear, your brain learns to avoid. When you react with control, your brain learns to lead. And over time, your emotional habits create your destiny. So pause and ask yourself, what are you training your mind to become? Do you want to be someone who reacts to life, or someone who directs it? Because here's the truth. Life will never stop testing you. People will misunderstand you. Circumstances will frustrate you. But the one thing you can always control, the one power no one can take from you, is your response. And when you master that, you master yourself. Because every reaction trains your brain to lose control faster next time, but every moment of pause rewires your brain to grow stronger instead. So the next time your emotions start to rise, remember this. The person who reacts first loses the moment. The one who pauses owns it. Chapter 2. Why your brain sabotages you. Have you ever wondered why you react before you even think? Why your words come out sharp before your logic catches up? It's not that you're weak. It's that your brain is doing exactly what it was designed to do: protect you, not perfect you. Thousands of years ago, reacting fast meant surviving. If our ancestors heard a noise in the bushes, hesitation could mean death. The brain learned one rule: see danger, act now. That ancient wiring still lives inside you. The only difference is that now the bushes are replaced with emails, arguments, and phone notifications. Your brain still thinks everything is a threat, not to your life, but to your ego. This is the power struggle between two parts of your brain, the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. The amygdala is ancient, emotional, impulsive, and lightning fast. The prefrontal cortex is newer, logical, rational, and slower. Here's the shocking part. The amygdala reacts in about 12 milliseconds, while your rational brain takes nearly 500 milliseconds to respond. That means emotions get a half-second head start, enough to ruin an entire day. Let's see how this looks in real life. You get an email from your boss saying, "We need to talk." Your amygdala fires instantly. "I'm in trouble." Your body floods with adrenaline. Your chest tightens. Your mind starts listing everything you could have done wrong. You start reacting, editing your story, crafting a defense, maybe even feeling resentment. 5 minutes later, you open the email thread and realize it was about a new project, not a problem. That's how fast your brain can betray you. It doesn't care about truth. It cares about survival. And survival, in the modern world, looks like emotional overreaction, because your brain interprets criticism as threat, silence as rejection, and uncertainty as danger. The same happens in relationships. Someone doesn't reply to your message. Your amygdala whispers, "They're ignoring you." You start checking your phone every few minutes. You reread your last text. You overanalyze your tone. Hours pass, and your peace is gone. But when they finally reply, the message says, "Sorry, I was busy." and you realize the threat never existed. It was created in your mind. Your brain's primary job is to predict pain. It constantly scans for what could go wrong, and that's why emotional reactivity feels so automatic. It's built into your survival system. The problem is, the world you live in today overstimulates that system every minute. Social media thrives on your emotional triggers: anger, envy, outrage, validation. News headlines are crafted to hijack your amygdala before your logic has a chance to breathe. Even the endless scroll is a dopamine trap designed to make you react, not reflect. You open your phone, and without realizing it, your nervous system goes to war. Your eyes absorb hundreds of micro-triggers, arguments, opinions, comparisons. Each one lights a small emotional fire, and your mind keeps reacting silently, continuously, until calm feels impossible. And yet, most people call this normal. The truth is, your brain is not built for constant stimulation. It's built for focus, awareness, and stillness. But when it's constantly bombarded, it gets addicted to reacting. It becomes restless when nothing's happening. That's why silence feels uncomfortable. That's why you check your phone during awkward pauses. That's why you overthink when things are peaceful, because your brain mistakes calm for danger. To master your emotions, you must retrain your brain to move from reflex to reflection. You can't stop your amygdala from firing, but you can teach your prefrontal cortex to step in faster. That's where awareness becomes your weapon. The moment you feel triggered, a heartbeat rising, a thought spinning, a word itching to escape, you must remember, this is not danger, it's chemistry. Your brain just released cortisol and adrenaline because it thinks you're under attack. But you're not. You're just caught between 12 milliseconds and 500. So you pause. You breathe. You let the slower, wiser part of your brain catch up. And that small pause is where emotional mastery begins. There's a saying, between the trigger and your reaction, there is a gap. In that gap lies your power. That gap is everything. In that gap, you choose whether to speak or stay silent, whether to forgive or to fight, whether to feed chaos or create calm. And you aren't. If you learn to live in that space, that small, sacred pause, you change your life. Think about it. When someone insults you and you don't react, the energy returns to them. When life tests you and you stay composed, people trust you more. When everything feels urgent and you choose stillness, you rise above the noise. Your brain will always tempt you to react, but your higher self, your conscious awareness, is not your brain. It's your command center. It's the calm voice that says, wait, think, breathe. You can't remove emotion from life, but you can remove emotion from decision. And when you do that, emotion becomes fuel, not fire. Your goal is not to silence your amygdala. It's to build a bridge between reaction and reason, to train your mind so that even when emotions arise, your awareness rises higher. Because the truth is, your brain isn't your enemy, it's your instrument. And like any instrument, it plays whatever you practice. If you practice reacting, it will react faster. If you practice observing, it will observe deeper. If you practice calm, it will default to calm. Every time you pause before reacting, you are rewiring centuries of evolution, proving that awareness is stronger than instinct. So, next time your emotions rise, remember this. The trigger is not the problem. The problem is your reaction to the trigger. Between the trigger and your reaction, there is a gap. And in that gap lies your power. Chapter 3. The 4 levels of emotional mastery. Emotional mastery is not a gift. It's a process, a long, often uncomfortable evolution from reaction to awareness. No one is born calm. We learn calmness the same way we learn chaos, through repetition. Every experience, every heartbreak, every argument is shaping how we respond to life. The question is, are you responding consciously or unconsciously? To understand this journey, imagine 4 stages, 4 levels of emotional awareness. Each one is a mirror, showing where you are and what still controls you. Each one is a test, and most people never pass the first. Let's begin. Level 1. Unconscious reactivity. This is where most people live without realizing it. Here, emotions control everything: your tone, your thoughts, your behavior. You don't have emotions. Emotions have you. When something happens, you react instantly as if pulled by invisible strings. You shout when you're angry. You withdraw when you're hurt. You make decisions to escape discomfort, not to create growth. And because of that, life feels like chaos, a constant series of emotional fires to put out. In this level, blame becomes your favorite shield. You blame people, circumstances, even fate for your reactions. You say things like, "They made me angry. She ruined my mood. He disrespected me." But the truth is, no one made you angry. They triggered what was already inside you. This level is not about the world's behavior. It's about your inability to pause. You become the puppet of your own chemistry: cortisol, adrenaline, dopamine, all dancing through your veins like uninvited guests at a party. And the worst part? You think that's normal. Unconscious reactivity destroys peace quietly. It makes you impulsive at work, defensive in relationships, and restless in silence. It convinces you that reacting is being real, when in fact, it's being ruled. Ask yourself, when was the last time I acted like this? If you can recall moments of instant anger, jealousy, or fear, you've been here, and that's okay. Recognition is the first step out. Level 2. Conscious reactivity. At this level, awareness begins to wake up. You still react, but now you notice it. You feel anger rising and think, "I shouldn't say this," right before you say it anyway. You hear your voice get louder and realize you're losing control, but the emotion feels too strong to stop. This is the painful stage of awakening, when your consciousness grows faster than your control. It's like watching yourself make the same mistake in slow motion. You know you're being reactive, yet the habit pulls you back in. And when it's over, guilt arrives, that heavy, familiar feeling that says, "Why did I do that again?" But this guilt, if used wisely, is gold. Because it means you're no longer asleep. You're observing yourself from a higher place. Think of it like learning to drive. At first, you keep jerking the wheel, hitting the brakes too hard, oversteering every turn. It's messy, but it's progress, because now you see what you're doing wrong. Most people confuse awareness with mastery, but awareness is just the mirror. Mastery is the discipline to change the reflection. So, if you find yourself regretting reactions after they happen, don't hate that feeling. It's the signal that your revolution has begun. Ask yourself, when was the last time I acted like this? And every time you ask, your reaction time slows, your awareness strengthens. Level 3. Conscious response. This is where control begins to look like grace. At this level, you no longer react, you respond. The difference is subtle but life-changing. Reaction is automatic. Response is intentional. Something triggers you, but instead of firing back, you take a breath. You let the surge pass. You analyze what's happening inside your body, the heartbeat, the tension, the heat in your chest, and you realize, I'm not my emotion, I'm the observer of it. This realization shifts everything. You speak softer. You think clearer. You start seeing the other person's pain instead of just your own. Imagine being in a heated argument. Instead of yelling, you say, "I need a moment to think." That one sentence disarms chaos. It resets the tone. It tells your nervous system, I'm in charge now. At this level, you stop being predictable. People who once provoked you get confused because the old version of you no longer shows up. They can't manipulate your reactions because you don't hand them your buttons anymore. You become calm in situations that once owned you, and that calm becomes your power. Ask yourself, when was the last time I acted like this? If you can remember a moment where you paused instead of reacted, you've touched this level even if only for a few seconds. That's how mastery begins in seconds. Level 4. Emotional alchemy. This is the highest stage where emotions are not enemies but energy. Here you don't suppress your emotions, you transmute them. Anger becomes clarity. Fear becomes focus. Sadness becomes depth. Pain becomes wisdom. You no longer see emotions as good or bad, only as messages. Each emotion carries information. Anger says, a boundary was crossed. Fear says, prepare. Sadness says, something valuable was lost. Joy says, you're aligned. You listen, learn, and let them pass through you like waves without drowning. At this level, stillness becomes your natural state. You can walk into chaos and remain untouched. You can listen to insults and hear only projection. You can sit in solitude and feel complete. Because you've learned the ultimate truth. Emotions are not meant to be controlled. They're meant to be understood. The calmest people are not those who feel the least. They're those who interpret the most. They've mastered the language of emotion and turned storms into navigation systems. This level is not about perfection. It's about progress, quiet, consistent, courageous progress. Because every time you choose response over reaction, you move one step closer to mastery. Ask yourself, one last time. When was the last time I acted like this? If you can answer, you're already on the path. Your goal is not to become emotionless, it's to become emotionally intelligent. Not to be numb, but to be aware. Not to escape emotion, but to direct it. Each level is an upgrade not to who you are, but to who you're becoming. Your peace is your proof, your stillness is your strength, and your awareness, that quiet witness inside you, is your ultimate weapon. Your goal is progress, not perfection. Each level is an upgrade. Chapter 4. The Stop Method. There's a simple truth about emotional mastery. Knowing how to stay calm isn't enough. You need a method, a ritual, a mental anchor you can reach for when your emotions start to rise. Because when your heart is racing, your logic disappears. When your mind is on fire, philosophy won't save you, practice will. That's where the stop method comes in. 4 simple letters. 4 simple steps. But if you master them, they can change the direction of your life in the exact second you feel like losing control. S. Stop. T. Take a breath. O. Observe. P. Proceed. It sounds simple, but in moments of tension, it's the hardest thing to do. Stop. Before you can master emotion, you must first stop momentum. Every reaction begins with a physical impulse. Your jaw tightens, your chest contracts, your mind starts forming words you'll regret. That's the moment to pause. Stop typing. Stop talking. Stop moving. You might feel that silence pressing against you like a wall, but that wall is your first act of control, because emotion feeds on speed. The faster you move, the less aware you become. Stopping doesn't mean you suppress emotion, it means you create space to witness it. It's saying to yourself, something inside me is reacting right now, let me slow down before I add fuel to it. Picture yourself in an argument. Words are flying, tones are rising, the natural urge is to fire back, but the moment you stop, you take the first step out of the storm. You interrupt the emotional chain before it grows teeth. Stopping doesn't make you weak, it makes you wise. Teat, take a breath. Breath is your bridge back to balance. Your body doesn't know the difference between a real threat and an emotional one. It just reacts. The heartbeat rises, muscles tense, and the nervous system prepares for battle. but the breath is your override switch. Try this. Inhale for 4 seconds, hold for 4, exhale for 6. Do it 3 times. It's not magic, it's biology. When you exhale longer than you inhale, you tell your nervous system, I am safe. That one slow breath signals the brain to pull blood flow back from your emotional center to your prefrontal cortex, the logical part of you that makes better choices. So, every time you breathe deeply in a tense moment, you're literally bringing your intelligence back online. Remember, you cannot think clearly in a body that feels unsafe. Breathing is how you remind your body that you are not in danger, you are in control. Observe. This is where awareness turns into mastery. Once you've paused and taken a breath, you must now observe what's real and what's assumed. Ask yourself, what exactly triggered me? What story is my mind telling me right now? Is there actual danger or just ego discomfort? Observation pulls you out of emotion and into consciousness. You begin to see that the trigger wasn't the person, it was your interpretation of what they said. You start realizing that the anger isn't about this moment, it's about 10 moments before it, still unresolved. You notice your body's reactions, the heat, the tightness, the restlessness, and you stay with them instead of fighting them. That's what breaks the pattern, because emotion thrives on reaction but weakens under observation. Imagine watching a storm from inside a glass room. The thunder roars, the rain pounds, but you remain untouched, just aware. That's the power of observation. It turns chaos into clarity. Proceed. This is where you take your power back. You don't proceed to win. You proceed to choose. You decide whether to speak or stay silent, to walk away or engage, to forgive or to confront. But now you're acting with logic, not impulse. Proceeding means you've absorbed the lesson of patience. You're not trying to control others, you're controlling your response to them. You might choose to have the same conversation later when you're calm. You might decide it's not worth your energy at all. Either way, you're now responding from power, not pain. There's a story of a woman who practiced the stop method every day. She worked in a stressful office where her manager constantly criticized her work. At first, she would defend herself or walk away in anger. But one day, she tried something new. Her manager spoke sharply, she stopped. She breathed slow and quiet. She observed, realizing that his words were not about her, but about his own pressure. And then she proceeded by calmly saying, I understand. Let's fix it. That one calm sentence shifted the entire dynamic. The argument dissolved before it began. That's what emotional mastery looks like in visible strength. Each letter of the stop method is a doorway. Stop interrupts the cycle. Take a breath regulates the body. Observe clears the mind. Proceed restores control. You can apply this anywhere during an argument, before sending a message, while dealing with stress, or even when you're alone and overthinking. Because reactivity isn't just about others, it's also how you respond to your own thoughts. So next time your emotions begin to take over, repeat it silently in your mind. Stop. Take a breath. Observe. Proceed. The power to pause is the power to choose. Chapter 5. Advanced Techniques. Now that you've learned how to pause, breathe, and observe, it's time to go deeper, because emotional control isn't the same as emotional mastery. Control means you can stay calm for a moment. Mastery means you can reshape how emotions work inside you permanently. Think of this as the difference between surviving a storm and learning how to navigate one. When you master emotions, you don't just hold yourself together. You use what you feel to fuel understanding, growth, and power. These next techniques aren't quick fixes. They're rewiring tools habits that slowly change how your brain processes reality. Let's begin. 1. Cognitive reframing. Every emotion begins with interpretation. It's not the event that hurts you, it's the meaning you attach to it. Two people can experience the same moment and feel completely different things. One sees rejection, the other sees redirection. One feels insulted, the other feels challenged. One breaks, the other builds. That's the power of reframing. It's how you teach your brain to stop turning discomfort into disaster. Whenever something negative happens, write down 3 alternate explanations that could also be true. For example, you didn't get the job. Your first thought, I failed. But your reframes could be, maybe something better is aligning for me. Maybe I wasn't ready for that position yet. Maybe this rejection is protecting me from a wrong path. You don't have to believe these right away, just write them. The act itself tells your brain, we're not victims of one interpretation. Over time, your default reaction changes. Instead of collapsing into negativity, your mind automatically searches for balance. That's emotional maturity in motion. Remember, you can't control what happens to you, but you can always control the story you tell yourself about it. 2. Emotional labeling. When you say, I'm angry, your brain reacts to that identity. But when you say, I'm feeling anger, everything changes. You've shifted from being the emotion to observing it. Labeling emotions with precision helps deactivate their intensity. Don't just say, I feel bad. Ask, what exactly am I feeling? Is it disappointment, embarrassment, guilt, powerlessness, envy? The more specific your label, the calmer you become, because specificity moves emotion from the emotional brain to the thinking brain. Neuroscientists call it affect labeling. When you name an emotion accurately, your amygdala quiets down, and your prefrontal cortex, the logic center, takes control. Try this the next time you feel overwhelmed. Pause and whisper to yourself, right now I feel emotion. Then breathe and watch what happens. You'll notice the emotional charge slowly dissolve. That's not denial, that's regulation. 3. Somatic regulation. The body keeps the score. Every unexpressed emotion lives somewhere inside you, in your shoulders, your chest, your stomach, your jaw. That's why you can't think your way out of tension. You have to release it physically. There are 3 main tools to do that. Box, breathing. Inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 4, hold again for 4. Progressive muscle relaxation, PMR. Tense one muscle group for 5 seconds, then release it. Move through your body from head to toe. Cold exposure or exercise. These reset your nervous system. Cold showers, brisk walks, or lifting weights signal your body that you're capable of handling stress. When your body feels safe, your mind follows. Because emotional chaos is often a physiological imbalance disguised as overthinking. So the next time your emotions rise, don't just ask, what am I feeling? Ask, where am I feeling it? Then move, breathe, stretch, or cool the body, and you'll notice how quickly your mind follows. 4. Timeline reframing. In the middle of emotional pain, everything feels permanent. But emotions are like weather, they pass. Timeline reframing reminds you that time changes intensity. Ask yourself, how will this feel in 1 hour? In 1 day? In 1 week? In 1 year? Your brain often magnifies the present moment into a lifelong catastrophe. But when you project the emotion into time, its grip loosens. You begin to see perspective instead of panic. This technique doesn't dismiss pain, it puts it in proportion, because very few things truly deserve the emotional energy we give them. When you remember that, you save your energy for growth, not reaction. 5. Energy management. You cannot master emotions in a drained body. Most people think they have anger problems, anxiety problems, or focus problems, but what they actually have are energy management problems. When you're tired, hungry, dehydrated, or overstimulated. Your brain's emotional circuits fire faster and louder. Sleep deprivation, sugar crashes, caffeine overload, all of these make calmness harder to access. You must protect your biological foundation like a warrior protects his weapon. Sleep 7. 9 hours in a dark, cool, quiet room. Eat protein at every meal to stabilize mood. Stay hydrated. Even mild dehydration increases irritability. Limit caffeine after midday. Get sunlight in the morning. It regulates serotonin and cortisol. This isn't self-care, it's neurocare, because you can't expect emotional wisdom from a brain that's running on fumes. When your body is balanced, your emotions follow. When your system is rested, calmness feels natural, not forced. These advanced techniques don't just help you stay calm, they transform the way your brain processes emotion. You're not suppressing anymore. You're sculpting. You're training your nervous system to respond like a master, not a victim. Reframing rewires thought. Labeling regulates emotion. Somatic practices ground the body. Timeline reframing restores perspective. Energy management fuels stability. When these 5 work together, you become unstoppable. Not because you never feel chaos, but because chaos no longer controls you. Remember, you can't think clearly in a body that feels unsafe. So master the body, manage the energy, and your mind will follow. Chapter 6. Building the baseline. Emotional mastery doesn't begin in the middle of the storm. It begins in the calm before it. You cannot expect to stay composed during chaos if your daily life is already draining your mind and body. The truth is simple but often ignored. You don't rise to the level of your motivation. You fall to the level of your preparation. If your baseline, your physical, mental, and emotional foundation is weak, then even small challenges will shake you. But when your baseline is strong, life's turbulence barely moves you. So in this chapter, we're going to build that foundation, not through complicated philosophy, but through structure daily, practical habits that keep your emotions stable, your mind clear, and your body resilient. Let's begin with the first and most essential pillar. Sleep, the silent reset. Most people underestimate how much their emotions depend on sleep. Miss one night, and you don't just feel tired, you feel fragile. The smallest inconveniences start to feel personal. Your patience disappears. That's not weakness, that's biology. When you sleep, your brain cleans itself. It literally flushes emotional residue from the day, resets your neurotransmitters, and restores your ability to regulate mood. Without that reset, your emotional tolerance shrinks. You start reacting faster, thinking slower, and regretting more. That's why the strongest emotional warriors treat sleep as sacred. Go to bed at the same time every night. Keep your room dark, cool, and quiet. And stay off screens at least 1 hour before sleeping. Blue light tells your brain that it's still daytime, confusing your internal clock. 7 to 9 hours. That's not luxury, that's maintenance. Every hour of quality sleep builds emotional armor for the next day. Nutrition feeding calmness. You can't master your mind if you're starving your brain. Every emotion you feel is chemical, and those chemicals come from what you eat. If your diet is full of sugar and processed food, your emotional system becomes unstable highs and crashes that mirror your blood sugar swings. That's why irritability, brain fog, and anxiety often start in the stomach, not the mind. So eat like someone who values clarity. Have protein in every meal. It stabilizes mood and supports focus. Add omega-3 fats. They reduce inflammation in the brain. Hydrate dehydration by just 2% affects decision-making. And reduce caffeine. When you're already stressed, it amplifies cortisol, the stress hormone. Food is not just fuel, it's information. Every bite you take tells your body how to feel. Choose foods that tell your body, be calm, be strong, be steady. Exercise movement as medicine. Your emotions live in your body, not your head. That's why physical movement is emotional release. When you move, your body metabolizes stress hormones, stabilizes neurotransmitters, and boosts serotonin and dopamine, your natural mood regulators. It's not about building muscle. It's about building resilience. Do a combination of cardio, strength, and skill training. Cardio clears mental fog. Strength builds discipline. Skill training improves focus. Even a 15-minute walk after an argument can reset your nervous system faster than hours of overthinking. Your body is built to move emotions out. So, use it. Because a still body breeds a stormy mind. Cognitive flexibility. Expanding the mind. Emotional rigidity comes from mental rigidity. If you only consume ideas that confirm what you already believe, your emotions become defensive. But when you train your mind to explore perspectives that challenge you, you become adaptable. Read books that make you uncomfortable. Listen to opinions that oppose yours. Try things you're not naturally good at. All of this stretches your emotional tolerance. It teaches your brain to stay calm when reality doesn't match your expectations. The more mentally flexible you are, the harder it is for life to offend you. Meaning, the anchor of stability. Without meaning, small problems feel big. When you don't know what you're living for, every obstacle feels personal. But when you're guided by purpose, temporary discomfort feels manageable, even necessary. Take time to define what truly matters to you. Ask, what do I want my life to stand for? What kind of energy do I want to bring into every room? What values guide my actions? When your values are clear, your emotions align. You stop reacting to every situation because not everything deserves your attention. Purpose filters out noise, and that clarity is peace. Environment. The energy you live in. You can't stay calm if you live in chaos. Your surroundings constantly feed your nervous system information, clutter, noise, negativity, arguments, even lighting. Create an environment that reflects the person you're becoming, not the person you've been. Clean your space. Surround yourself with people who challenge you gently but support you sincerely. Choose conversations that nourish your growth. Limit time with people who thrive on drama or complaint because emotional energy is contagious. You are not just influenced by what you consume. You are influenced by what surrounds you. Strategic stress training under pressure. You can't build emotional strength in comfort. That's why you must introduce controlled stress into your routine. Small, intentional challenges that train your body and mind to handle discomfort without panic. Cold showers, meditation, difficult workouts, public speaking, sitting with silence. Each time you voluntarily face discomfort, your nervous system learns something powerful. This feels intense, but I can survive it. That lesson translates directly into emotional stability. When real challenges come, your system doesn't overreact. It recognizes the feeling and stays grounded. The goal isn't to avoid pressure, it's to raise your capacity for it. Recovery. The forgotten discipline. We celebrate effort, but we forget restoration. Without recovery, your emotional system burns out. Take one day each week to unplug. Go into nature. Disconnect from constant stimulation. Reflect on your week, not to judge, but to understand. Stillness isn't laziness. It's strategy. It's the time when your inner system repairs, rewires, and rebalances. You can't grow stronger if you never let your mind rest. When you combine these habits, sleep, nutrition, movement, flexibility, purpose, environment, strategic stress, and recovery, you build a baseline of balance. A foundation so strong that even when storms arrive, they can't uproot you. Your calm becomes your natural state, Your peace becomes your power, and the world starts noticing not because you're louder, but because you're centered. Remember this truth. Strong emotions require strong foundations. Chapter 7. Your brain on mastery. Every time you pause before reacting, every time you breathe through discomfort instead of feeding it, your brain is changing. Literally. Emotional mastery is not just a mindset, it's a biological transformation. Your neural circuits, the electrical pathways that control how you think, feel, and respond, are being rewired every moment you choose awareness over impulse. That's what scientists call neuroplasticity. It's your brain's ability to reorganize itself by forming new connections. And the incredible truth is this: your brain never stops learning. No matter how many years you've spent reacting, overthinking, or losing control, the moment you start practicing awareness, the architecture of your brain begins to shift. Let's explore what actually happens inside your mind when you begin the journey toward emotional mastery. The battle between two worlds. Inside your head, two forces are always competing: the amygdala and the prefrontal cortex. The amygdala is ancient, fast, emotional, impulsive. It's the alarm system that screams danger before you've had time to think. The prefrontal cortex, on the other hand, is your command center, rational, strategic, and calm. It's responsible for decisions, focus, and long-term thinking. When you live in constant reaction, your amygdala dominates your brain. It becomes hypersensitive, overactive, and easily triggered. But when you start practicing calm responses through breathing, pausing, reframing, or observing, you strengthen the prefrontal cortex. And something fascinating happens. The amygdala actually begins to shrink in size, while the prefrontal cortex becomes thicker and more connected. You're not pretending to be calm, you're becoming calm. Your biology evolves to match your discipline. This is why emotional mastery isn't about suppression, it's about training. Just like lifting weights strengthens your muscles, mindfulness strengthens your neural control. Within 8 to 12 weeks of consistent practice, brain scans show measurable changes in emotional regulation centers. You begin to experience what monks, martial artists, and philosophers have practiced for centuries: stillness as strength. How the mind learns: calmness. Every time you react emotionally, neurons in your brain fire together. And as they fire together, they wire together. That's why repeated reactivity becomes habit. The neurons form a shortcut, a fast lane for anger, anxiety, or frustration. But when you pause, instead, even for a few seconds, you interrupt that circuit. You stop firing the old pattern and start forming a new one. And the more you repeat that pause, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, what once felt like effort becomes automatic calm. That's neuroplasticity in action chaos being replaced by clarity. Your mind learns through experience, not intention. You can't think your way to peace. You must practice your way there. The chemistry of mastery. Emotional control isn't just about neurons, it's also about hormones and neurotransmitters. When you live in reactivity, your body stays flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. These are stress chemicals useful in short bursts, toxic in long doses. Chronic reactivity keeps your body in fight or flight mode, which weakens focus, immunity, and even memory. But when you begin to master your emotions, a different chemistry takes over. Your body releases serotonin, oxytocin, and GABA neurotransmitters associated with peace, connection, and balance. Your heart rate lowers. Your breathing deepens. Your body learns safety, and when the body feels safe, the mind can finally think clearly. That's why people who appear calm aren't born that way. They've trained their nervous system to associate stillness with safety. Your job is to create that same association. Through repetition, you teach your body, Calm is not weakness, calm is power. Mirror neurons. The hidden influence. Your emotions are not isolated. They are contagious. Your brain has what scientists call mirror neuron cells that reflect the emotions of people around you. That's why you feel uneasy near angry people or relaxed around someone peaceful. Your nervous system literally mirrors the emotional tone of others. This also means your own calmness can regulate a room. When you stay grounded during chaos, other people unconsciously match your energy. Leadership, at its core, is emotional regulation projected outward. That's why emotionally mature people don't just manage their inner world, they stabilize the energy of those around them. They become the anchor in the storm. Every time you choose composure, you're not just changing yourself, you're teaching others how to find balance too. The discipline of repetition. Neuroplasticity is built on one principle: repetition. The more you repeat a behavior, the deeper it's wired. That's why bad habits feel natural, they're rehearsed scripts. And it's why calmness feels strange at first, you're building a new one. But here's the key. Your brain doesn't care what you repeat. It only cares that you repeat. So when you consistently choose awareness, your neural circuits begin to expect calm instead of chaos. Within weeks, your response time slows down. Within months, your emotional triggers lose intensity. And within a year, the situations that once consumed you barely touch your peace. This isn't luck, it's neuroscience, the true reward of mastery. At this stage, something profound begins to happen. You stop identifying with your emotions entirely. You realize anger is just energy passing through. Fear is just an old survival signal. Sadness is just depth-seeking expression. You stop asking, "Why am I feeling this?" and start asking, "What is this emotion trying to teach me?" And that's when life changes. Because emotions no longer control your behavior, they serve your growth. You become clear, patient, aware. Your mind stops fighting itself. Your peace becomes your personality. This is the biological truth behind emotional mastery. Every breath, every pause, every act of awareness is sculpting your brain into a calmer, wiser version of itself. You're not pretending. You're evolving. You're not suppressing emotions. You're upgrading the system that processes them. Remember, you're not pretending to be calm. You're becoming calm. Chapter 8. Performing under pressure. Pressure. It's the great revealer. It shows you who you really are when comfort disappears and control slips from your hands. Anyone can stay calm when life is kind. But the real test of emotional mastery begins when the world demands everything from you all at once, when the stakes are high, the clock is ticking, and the voice in your head starts whispering, "You're not ready for this." In those moments, pressure doesn't build character, it exposes it. And what it often exposes is not weakness, but untrained emotion. The body trembles not because it's broken, but because it hasn't yet learned how to turn chaos into clarity. This chapter is about that transformation, about learning to see pressure not as something to survive, but something to use. The event is neutral. The story isn't. Every stressful moment begins as an event, a meeting, an argument, a deadline, a decision. But the emotion that follows doesn't come from the event itself. It comes from the story you tell yourself about what that event means. You fail a presentation. Your mind says, "I'm not good enough." You get rejected. Your mind says, "I'll never succeed." You're challenged publicly. Your mind says, "I'm being disrespected." The pressure doesn't come from reality, it comes from interpretation. That's why the first rule of performing under pressure is to rewrite the story. Ask yourself, what else could this mean? How is this helping me grow? What's the opportunity here? By changing the narrative, you change the feeling, because your nervous system doesn't react to events, it reacts to perception, and perception is a choice. You can either see pressure as proof you're unprepared, or proof you're being shaped for something greater. Stress inoculation. Training the mind for chaos. When a firefighter runs into a burning building, their body doesn't panic, even though every biological signal tells them to run. Why? Because they've trained under stress. They've conditioned their mind to associate intensity with focus, not fear. That's what stress inoculation is, exposing yourself to controlled discomfort so your system learns that pressure doesn't mean danger. You can start small. Cold showers to train breath under shock. Challenging workouts to strengthen focus under fatigue. Meditation to stay calm under inner noise. Deadlines to sharpen clarity under time limits. Each deliberate challenge rewires your nervous system. Your brain begins to say, "We've been here before, we can handle this." The key is repetition. The more you voluntarily face discomfort, the less power involuntary stress has over you. Pressure stops being something to fear. It becomes your reminder that you're alive, growing, and capable of more than you think. Laser focus, the art of single action. When stress hits, your mind scatters. It tries to think of everything at once, every possibility, every outcome, every what if. That fragmentation is what drains you, not the task itself. So, when you're under pressure, simplify. Ask yourself, what's the next best action I can take right now? Not the perfect one, not the final one, just the next one. That single focus pulls your brain out of chaos and into presence, because anxiety lives in the future, but power lives in the present. The calmest minds in crisis aren't the ones thinking less, they're the ones thinking narrower. They know that one small, controlled action is more valuable than 1,000 uncontrolled thoughts. When the world speeds up, slow your focus down. Because panic thrives in speed, but clarity thrives in stillness. Emotional granularity, naming the storm. When you say, "I'm stressed," that word is too vague to help you. Are you overwhelmed? Are you afraid? Are you frustrated? Are you uncertain? Each of these requires a different response. This is called emotional granularity, the ability to label emotions with precision. It's one of the most underrated tools for peak performance. A leader who says, "I'm anxious," might freeze. But one who says, "I'm anticipating uncertainty," can plan. A student who says, "I'm angry," might react. But one who says, "I'm feeling disrespected," can communicate. Specific language leads to specific solutions. Vague emotions only lead to vague panic. So, when pressure rises, pause and ask, what exactly am I feeling? And then, what's that emotion asking me to do? Sometimes it wants movement, sometimes reflection, sometimes just patience. When you can name the storm, you stop being lost in it. Process over outcome. The inner athlete's mindset. Pressure loves to trick you into focusing on what you can't control the outcome. But high performers in every field know this secret. Focus on the process, not the result. When you shift attention from, "Will I succeed?" to, "Am I giving my best effort right now?" you break the cycle of anxiety, because outcome is judgment, process is power. You can't control who applauds, who criticizes, or how the world responds. But you can control how you breathe, how you prepare, how you act in the moment. That's what separates professionals from amateurs, the ability to stay grounded in process when everything around them screams for results. Pressure fades the moment you realize you were never supposed to control everything, only yourself. Contingency and reflection. The growth loop. Performing under pressure isn't about never failing, it's about failing forward. After every high-stress event, Take a few minutes to reflect. What worked? What broke down? What did I learn about myself? How will I adjust next time? This is how growth becomes permanent through reflection and recalibration. Pressure gives feedback, and those who listen to that feedback become unshakable. They don't crumble under stress. They adapt. When you learn to view pressure through this lens, it stops being your enemy. It becomes your coach. It trains you to breathe through intensity, to think when others freeze, to see clearly when others blur. Because at its core, pressure is just potential in disguise, raw energy waiting to be directed by a calm mind. And once you master that calm, the world begins a change. Suddenly, deadlines feel like opportunities. Challenges feel like proving grounds. Chaos feels like a stage designed for your growth. Remember this. Pressure is a privilege. It means life trusts you enough to hand you moments that matter. And when you can stay composed in those moments, when you can perform with grace while the world trembles, you've crossed the line between emotional control and true mastery. Pressure doesn't break you. It reveals that you were built for more. Chapter 9. Turning Pain into Power. Every human life carries pain, sometimes sharp, sometimes quiet, but always present. You can hide it, deny it, suppress it, but you can never escape it. And yet in that very truth lies a hidden gift, because pain is not just something to endure. It's something to transform. People think strength is the absence of pain, but true strength is the ability to turn pain into energy. It's the art of using what hurt you to fuel what heals you. In this chapter, we're going to explore how that happens, how the emotions that once broke you can become the very emotions that build you. Pain is not the enemy. The first mistake people make is trying to run from pain. They distract themselves, bury feelings under work, food, relationships, or endless scrolling. But what they don't realize is that avoidance feeds pain. Pain that's ignored grows stronger. Pain that's resisted becomes identity. And pain that's understood transforms. When you face pain directly without panic, without denial, something profound happens. The emotion that once terrified you becomes your teacher. You begin to see that pain was never punishment. It was preparation. You start noticing its patterns. Pain always appears when something inside you is ready to evolve, when an outdated version of you is being stripped away to make space for the next. That's why it feels like destruction, because creation always does. The language of emotion. Each emotion has a purpose, a message behind its intensity. But most people never stop to listen. They just react or resist. Let's translate what pain is actually trying to tell you. Emotion. Meaning? Transformation. Anger. A boundary was violated. Channel it into assertiveness. Use that fire to defend your peace, not destroy it. Fear. The future feels uncertain. Turn it into preparation. Focus on what's in your control. Sadness. Something valuable was lost. Transform it into reflection. Sadness shows you what truly mattered. Frustration. A system or pattern isn't working. Use it for innovation. Frustration is the birthplace of solutions. Guilt. You acted out of alignment with your values. Let it guide correction, not self-punishment. Shame. You believe something is wrong with you. Transform it by remembering that mistakes don't define worth. Jealousy. You're seeing a reflection of your own potential. Let it inspire effort instead of envy. Every painful emotion carries information. If you pause long enough to decode it, it loses its power to control you. Pain is never meaningless, but meaning must be chosen. Turning anger into direction. Anger isn't evil. Its energy raw, concentrated focus. When directed toward destruction, it burns everything. But when directed toward purpose, it builds empires. Think of every great reformer, inventor, or artist. Their work often began with anger at injustice, limitation, or mediocrity. Anger showed them what was wrong with the world. Discipline helped them fix it. So the next time you feel that, channel it, write, move, speak, create. Let anger become momentum toward clarity, not chaos. The energy that once made you reactive can make you relentless if you learn how to direct it, turning fear into focus. Fear tries to protect you, but it often overprotects you, keeping you small, hesitant, and safe. But fear is just misused imagination. It's the brain rehearsing disaster instead of possibility. When fear appears, ask, what is this fear trying to prepare me for? Fear is not a stop sign. It's a signal to get ready. It tells you where your next level lives. Every major growth in your life will feel uncomfortable first. That's how you know it matters. So use fear as a compass. Run toward the things that scare you but call you, because what you fear most often hides what you need most. Turning sadness into depth. Sadness is love with nowhere to go. It's the echo of something meaningful that once existed, a person, a dream, a moment. Most people treat sadness like a sickness to escape, but sadness is sacred. It reminds you that you are capable of caring deeply. Sit with it. Let it speak. Ask it, what am I missing? And what does that say about what I value? You'll realize sadness doesn't make you weak, it makes you human. It gives birth to empathy, art, connection, and gratitude. When you stop running from sadness, you discover that it's not a wall, it's a window. Through it, you begin to see life more clearly than before. Turning frustration into design. Frustration happens when effort meets inefficiency. It's life saying, there's a better way. Instead of seeing frustration as failure, treat it as feedback. Ask, what system is broken? What pattern keeps repeating? What truth am I ignoring? Frustration is how the mind signals that it's time to improve something, whether that's your habits, your environment, or your expectations. Some of the world's greatest inventions were born from frustration, not genius. It's the moment when you say, I can't live like this anymore, and decide to build something new. That's how transformation begins, with dissatisfaction. Jiwiyu, transmutation, the alchemy of pain. When you stop running from pain and start learning from it, something beautiful happens. Pain becomes power. Fear becomes direction. Loss becomes wisdom. And your story, once full of wounds, becomes a sort of healing for others. You become the alchemist of your own life. You take the raw materials of suffering and forge them into clarity, strength, and purpose. And people around you will notice, not because you never struggle, but because your struggles no longer define you. They refine you. You start walking differently, quieter, slower, but deeper. You no longer react to life, you respond to it. You no longer say, why me? But what is this teaching me? That shift from pain to purpose is the real mark of emotional evolution. Because emotions are energy. You either waste it or weaponize it. And when you learn to weaponize it with awareness, nothing in this world can truly break you again. Pain will visit, always. But suffering, that's optional, because suffering is pain without understanding. So the next time pain knocks on your door, don't close it. Invite it in. Listen to it. Learn from it. And when you're ready, let it go, not with resentment, but with gratitude. Because pain was never here to destroy you. It was here to show you what you're made of. Chapter 10. Emotional intelligence in relationships. If emotional mastery begins within you, then its true test begins with others. because it's easy to stay calm when you're alone. But when another human enters the equation with their moods, tone, habits, and history, your peace gets tested in real time. Relationships are emotional mirrors. They don't create your reactions, they reveal them, and the level of your emotional intelligence determines whether that reflection becomes a battlefield or a bridge. This chapter is about learning how to connect without losing yourself, how to communicate without exploding, and how to love without draining your peace. Understanding emotional triggers in others. The first rule of emotional intelligence in relationships is simple. Not every emotion directed at you is about you. Most people are reacting from unhealed experiences, not present events. Your partner's anger may not be about the forgotten chore, it may be about years of not feeling heard. Your friend's jealousy may not be about your success, it may be about their own sense of lack. Your colleague's defensiveness may not be about your feedback, it may be about their fear of inadequacy. When you learn to see emotion as information instead of insult, you stop reacting and start understanding. This doesn't mean you tolerate disrespect. It means you interpret wisely. You ask yourself, what pain could be behind this reaction? Empathy doesn't justify behavior, it explains it. And once you understand, you can respond from wisdom instead of war. Listening for the emotion beneath the words. Most people listen to reply. Emotionally intelligent people listen to feel. They don't just hear words, they hear the heartbeat underneath them. When someone says, "You never have time for me," they're not demanding your schedule, they're asking for reassurance. When someone says, "You've changed," they're really saying, "I miss how close we used to be." When someone says, "Leave me alone," sometimes what they mean is, "Please notice that I'm struggling." Emotional intelligence means you listen beyond the surface. You learn to translate tone, silence, and energy. You stop taking everything personally because you understand that words are often clumsy expressions of deeper needs. The secret to strong relationships is not agreement, it's emotional accuracy. If you can identify what someone is truly feeling, you can navigate any disagreement with grace. Empathy without absorption. Empathy is the ability to feel with others, but without emotional boundaries, empathy becomes exhaustion. You can care deeply without carrying everything. You can support someone's storm without standing in the rain. To do that, remember one truth. You are responsible to people, not for them. You can guide, but you cannot rescue. You can listen, but you cannot live their lessons for them. Healthy empathy says, "I see your pain, but I trust your strength." It respects both compassion and boundaries, because the moment you absorb everyone's energy, your own light begins to dim, and you cannot heal others from an unhealed self. Emotional maturity is knowing when to connect and when to detach, not from indifference, but from wisdom. The power of "I feel." Statements. Arguments often escalate not because of what's said, but how it's said. Blame invites defense, but vulnerability invites understanding. Compare these two. "You never listen to me," versus "I feel unheard when I'm interrupted." The first attacks. The second reveals. "I feel" statements are not weakness, they're strategy. They shift conversations from accusation to connection. They show emotional ownership, not projection. When both people in a relationship start speaking this way, conflict turns into conversation. No one's trying to win. Both are trying to understand. Setting calm boundaries without guilt. One of the hardest lessons in emotional intelligence is learning to say no without shame. Boundaries are not walls, they are filters. They keep in what nourishes peace and keep out what drains it. A boundary is not about controlling others, it's about protecting your capacity to love them well, because you can't give compassion from exhaustion. The emotionally mature person knows that saying no is sometimes the kindest thing you can do for both yourself and others. Boundaries sound like, I care about you, but I need time to recharge. I understand you're upset, but I won't be spoken to with disrespect. I can listen, but I can't fix this for you. Calm boundaries build trust, not through force, but through consistency. People eventually learn that your peace is not negotiable. Emotional maturity builds trust. Trust doesn't come from promises or words, it comes from emotional consistency. When people know you won't explode when things get tense, they relax around you. They feel safe to open up. That's how deep connection begins, not through intensity, but through stability. Emotional maturity in relationships looks like this. You don't respond instantly when you're upset. You don't guilt people for having their own needs. You communicate with patience, not punishment. You take responsibility for your tone, not just your words. You repair conflicts instead of replaying them. That's what creates love that lasts, emotional safety. Not perfection, not passion, but peace. Because when peace exists between two people, love becomes effortless. The real measure of emotional intelligence is not how calm you are when everything's easy, it's how kind you remain when you could be cruel, how patient you stay when you could prove a point, how open you remain even when your ego wants to shut down. Remember this truth. The more emotionally intelligent you are, the less you argue, and the more you connect. Because arguments seek victory, but connection seeks understanding. And in that understanding, every relationship, romantic, professional, or spiritual, becomes a mirror for growth, not a battleground for power. Chapter 11. Rewiring your self-talk. There is a voice inside your head that never stops speaking. It narrates every experience, judges every action, predicts every failure, and occasionally quietly cheers you on. That voice shapes the reality you live in, not the outer one, but the inner world that determines how you see yourself. If your inner voice is harsh, you'll experience life as a battlefield. If it's kind but honest, you'll move through life as a learner. That voice is the architect of your emotions because the way you talk to yourself determines how you feel about yourself. This chapter is about rewiring that voice, turning your inner critic into an inner coach. Because emotional mastery doesn't just mean controlling your reactions to the world, it means mastering the world inside your mind. The power of inner language. Every thought you repeat becomes a program. If you constantly tell yourself, "I'm not enough," your brain doesn't question it, it records it as fact. The subconscious mind is obedient. It believes repetition more than reason. That's why even confident people can feel small. Because their inner dialogue doesn't match their external actions. They may look composed, but inside, they're being quietly bullied by their own thoughts. Your goal is to become aware of that dialogue, because awareness changes everything. You can't change a voice you don't notice. So start observing your internal speech. Notice how you speak to yourself when you fail, when you're late, when you make a mistake. Would you ever speak to someone you love that way? If not, then why are you speaking that way to yourself? That question is the first spark of transformation. The inner critic, a misguided protector. Your inner critic isn't evil, it's misunderstood. It developed as a defense mechanism, a way to protect you from embarrassment, rejection, or pain. It says things like, "You'll fail again," not because it wants you to fail, but because it wants to keep you safe. The problem is that safety and growth can't coexist. To stay safe is to stay small. So instead of trying to silence that voice, learn to question it. When it says, "You can't do this," reply, "Then why have I survived everything I thought I couldn't?" When it says, "You're not ready," respond, "Maybe that's exactly why it's time." Don't fight the voice, educate it. Turn it into an ally by teaching it truth. Because the voice you hear most often should not be your enemy. Replace self-criticism with self-coaching. The next time you make a mistake, don't ask, "Why am I like this?" Ask, "What can I learn from this?" Self-criticism punishes. Self-coaching teaches. You can be honest without being cruel. You can hold yourself accountable without shame. The tone you use with yourself matters more than you think, because tone decides whether your brain feels fear or safety, and growth can only happen in safety. So, speak to yourself as you would to a student. You believe in firm when necessary, but compassionate always. The goal is not perfection, it's progress. The science of repetition, reprogramming the subconscious. Your subconscious mind learns through repetition and emotion. That means every thought charged with emotion gets imprinted deeper. That's why painful memories last longer, they're emotionally charged repetitions. But here's the good news. You can use the same principle to rewrite them. Choose one sentence that reflects who you want to become, not who you've been. For example, I am learning to stay calm under pressure. I am becoming more confident with every challenge. I am healing faster than I used to. Repeat it daily out loud, in writing or in thought, not as blind positivity, but as direction. Your brain will resist it at first, but eventually it will adapt, because neurons that fire together wire together even for self-belief. Catching negative loops. Early, negative thoughts are like sparks, harmless alone, but dangerous if ignored. If you catch them early, they lose power. If you feed them, they become wildfire. When you notice yourself spiraling, worrying, overthinking, criticizing, say one phrase, interrupt. That single word breaks the circuit. Then redirect your focus, breathe, stretch, or say your new affirmation. You can't stop negative thoughts from showing up, but you can stop them from setting up camp. The faster you interrupt, the faster your mind learns what you tolerate and what you no longer allow. Visualization. Seeing before becoming. Your mind doesn't fully distinguish between vivid imagination and real experience. That's why athletes visualize before games and speakers rehearse success in their heads. When you imagine a calm, confident version of yourself responding gracefully to life, your brain begins to build those same neural patterns. Visualization is mental rehearsals. You're training your emotional system before the event even happens. Every morning, close your eyes and picture yourself handling something that once triggered you calmly, intelligently, powerfully. See it. Feel it. Believe it. Your subconscious begins to accept it as reality. That's not fantasy, it's preparation. From inner enemy to inner ally. When you practice self-awareness, self-coaching, repetition and visualization, your inner world begins to change tone. The critic softens into a coach. The fear becomes guidance. The doubt becomes curiosity. You stop being your own opponent and start being your own mentor. And the result is quiet confidence, the kind that doesn't need to shout. Because when your internal voice supports you, the world outside loses its power to shake you. Remember, you are not what you feel. You are what you repeat. So repeat peace, repeat belief, repeat compassion until your mind has no choice but to follow. Chapter 12, The Spiritual Side of Emotional Mastery. There's a level of peace that logic can't reach. A depth of calm that no technique, no affirmation, no breathing pattern can create because it isn't learned by the mind. It's remembered by the soul. Emotional mastery begins as psychology, but it ends as spirituality. Because once you've trained your mind, disciplined your reactions, and stabilized your emotions, a question begins to rise quietly within you. Who is it that is aware of all these emotions? That awareness, the one observing your thoughts, your reactions, your rise and fall, that's not your personality, that's your consciousness, And the more you connect to that awareness, the freer you become. This chapter isn't about religion. It's about remembrance, returning to the stillness that has always lived underneath your emotions, waiting for you to notice it again. Control versus surrender. Most people think mastery means controlling feelings, controlling others, controlling outcomes. But the deeper truth is that control is an illusion. You don't control when people love you. You don't control when life tests you. You don't control how the world behaves. What you truly control is your alignment, how centered you remain while life unfolds. And that requires surrender, not control. Surrender doesn't mean giving up. It means giving over, releasing your tight grip on how things should be and allowing them to be what they are. Because peace isn't born from perfect outcomes, it's born from perfect acceptance. When you surrender, you move from resistance to flow. And that flow connects you to something larger than yourself, call it God, the universe, consciousness, or truth. It's the silent intelligence that's been guiding you since before you even had words for it. Stillness as awareness, meditation, prayer, solitude. These are not escapes from the world. They are returns to it. They bring you back to the simple truth that your emotions are waves, but you are the ocean. The waves may rise, crash, and foam, but the ocean remains still underneath. When you close your eyes and breathe deeply, you're not trying to escape the mind. You're watching it. You're stepping back into the seat of awareness, where judgment fades and witnessing begins. From that seat, anger doesn't scare you. Sadness doesn't break you. Fear doesn't rule you. Because you finally understand you're not your emotions. You are the space in which they appear and disappear. The greatest spiritual act is not transcendence, it's presence, being fully here, fully awake, fully human, and yet completely free. Compassion and forgiveness. The highest forms of power. When you begin to live from awareness instead of ego, something softens inside you. You stop seeing people as enemies and start seeing them as expressions of their pain. You realize that the person who hurt you was acting from their own wounds, their own fear, their own blindness. And in that understanding, forgiveness becomes possible not as approval, but as release. Because forgiveness isn't saying, what happened was okay. It's saying, I refuse to let it poison me any longer. Compassion, too, becomes easier. You start to see the shared humanity in everyone, that we're all just trying to love, to matter, to be understood. Even those who act cruelly are seeking peace in the only way they know how. That realization doesn't make you weak, it makes you unshakable. Because when your heart expands, nothing can confine it again. Presence over perfection. Spiritual maturity doesn't mean you never feel pain again. It means you no longer identify with it. It means that when pain arises, you don't say, why me? You say, this too belongs. You start moving through life with a quiet trust that even the uncomfortable moments are part of a larger harmony you can't yet see. This trust allows you to breathe when others panic, to smile when others despair, to stand still when others run. You realize that life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. Every challenge, every delay, every heartbreak is polishing you into awareness. And when you live from that realization, calmness becomes sacred, not a technique, a way of being. From reaction to reverence. When you master emotions spiritually, you stop reacting to life, you start revering it. Every breath becomes a miracle. Every challenge becomes a teacher. Every person becomes a reflection of yourself. You begin to see that even your most painful moments were doorways through which you met strength, compassion, and peace you didn't know you had. And that's the paradox of awakening. You don't gain anything new. You simply remember what was always there. Stillness, presence, awareness, love. These are not things you find, they're things you stop forgetting. The gentle power of conscious warmth. There's a myth that emotional mastery makes you cold, detached, distant, untouchable. But in truth, mastery makes you warmer than ever. Because only a healed heart can stay open in a broken world. Only someone who understands their own darkness can hold light for others without judgment. Your calmness doesn't make you distant. It makes you available. Your silence doesn't make you empty. It makes you full. And your peace doesn't make you boring. It makes you radiant. Spiritual mastery is emotional mastery in its highest form, not the death of emotion, but its purification. Not suppression, but surrender. Not control, but connection. Because in the end, the calmest people aren't the ones who feel the least, they're the ones who trust the most. Emotional mastery is spiritual maturity, disguised as calm. It's what happens when your mind bows to your soul, when your logic finally trusts the silence behind it. And from that silence, you don't just live, you awaken. Chapter 13. Living as the calm in the storm. There comes a moment in every person's life when all the lessons, all the pain, all the awareness you've gained are put to the ultimate test. It's not in the meditation room, not in the quiet mornings, not in the comfort of stillness, but in the storm. When everything falls apart, when plans collapse, when people leave, when nothing makes sense and everything you built begins to shake. That is where emotional mastery either dissolves or becomes real. Because peace that only works when life is easy isn't peace, it's preference. Real calm is proven in chaos, becoming the eye of the storm. Every storm has a center, the eye. Inside it there's no wind, no thunder, no confusion, just stillness, even as the world rages around it. The goal of emotional mastery isn't to escape the storm. It's to become that eye, the calm at the center of your own chaos. When life tests you, you have two choices. You can become part of the storm, reacting, panicking, fighting the wind. Or you can anchor yourself in presence, letting the world move while you remain grounded. This doesn't mean indifference, it means trust. It means you've trained yourself to know that even the fiercest wave can't drown the ocean. So, when the winds rise, you breathe slower. When people panic, you listen deeper. When fear spreads, you radiate steadiness. You don't need to shout your calm, it speaks for itself. When everything falls apart. Sometimes, despite all the wisdom you've gathered, life will hit you in ways that take your breath away. Loss, betrayal, illness, uncertainty, moments that make your heart ache and your faith tremble. And in those moments, all the tools, the breathing, the reframing, the stillness, they're not meant to erase the pain. They're meant to hold you through it. You won't always feel peaceful. You won't always respond perfectly. And that's okay, because mastery isn't about never falling, it's about never forgetting that you can get back up. The calmest people in this world aren't untouched by suffering, they've just stopped resisting it. They let pain move through them without letting it stay inside them. You can cry and still be calm. You can grieve and still have faith. You can feel broken and still know that wholeness is waiting beneath the cracks. That's what living as the calm in the storm really means, not perfection, but presence. The power of emotional leadership. In every crisis, personal or collective, there's always one person who stands out, not because they're the loudest, but because they're the clearest. When everyone else is spiraling, they're the ones who breathe, observe, and choose their words carefully. That is emotional leadership. You don't need a title or a crowd to be that person. You just need awareness, the courage to stay composed when fear would be easier. Your calm doesn't just stabilize you, it stabilizes everyone around you. When you refuse to join the panic, you unconsciously give others permission to find their balance too. And that's how calm spreads, not through preaching, but through presence. In a world obsessed with reaction, your stillness becomes rebellion. How to respond. When chaos knocks, when uncertainty hits, follow a simple pattern. Pause before your emotions define the moment. Breathe, return oxygen to your reason. Observe what's actually happening, not what your mind imagines. Respond with intention, not impulse. This pattern isn't just for conflict, it's for life. It's how you navigate heartbreak, failure, or sudden change without losing your center. You stop trying to predict outcomes and start focusing on alignment. You stop fighting the uncontrollable and start mastering what you can control: your perception, your energy, your presence. And slowly, life stops feeling like something happening to you and starts feeling like something unfolding through you. The peace that doesn't depend on conditions. Most people live in conditional peace. I'll relax when things get better. I'll feel calm when I have stability. I'll be happy when I get what I want. But life rarely gives you conditions that stay perfect. If your peace depends on circumstances, it will always be temporary. Unconditional peace, however, comes from alignment, from being rooted in something deeper than outcomes. When you understand that you can't control the storm, but you can control how you stand in it, you unlock a power that nothing external can touch. You stop chasing peace. You embody it. That's why the strongest people often appear quiet. Their strength isn't in force, it's in their refusal to be disturbed. They don't run from pain because they know they can hold it. They don't run from change because they've learned how to adapt. Their peace is not a reaction, it's their identity. Leading through presence. Imagine walking into a room full of tension, people arguing, energy thick with frustration, and you say nothing. You simply enter, grounded, breathing calmly, unshaken. Within minutes, the atmosphere shifts, not because of what you said, but because of what you didn't. That is the quiet power of presence. When you live as the calm in the storm, your energy becomes medicine. You don't fix people, you remind them of what peace feels like. Your calm says, "It's okay, we can face this." And sometimes, that silent reassurance is worth more than 1,000 words. Peace as purpose. At some point, you'll realize your purpose isn't to win every argument, prove every point, or even control every situation. Your purpose is to protect your peace, because from peace, every right action arises naturally. When you're calm, you see more clearly. When you see clearly, you choose wisely. And when you choose wisely, life unfolds with harmony even when it's hard. That's not weakness, that's wisdom. You become the calm that others search for. You become the space where chaos dissolves. You become simply home. So when the world shakes, remember this truth. You don't need to fix the storm. You just need to remain the sky, because storms always pass, but the sky never leaves. And that's what it means to live as the calm in the storm. Chapter 14. The 30-Day Integration Plan. You've learned the principles. You've practiced awareness. You've seen how emotions rise and fall, how calm can be cultivated, and how your brain and soul adapt with every conscious pause. But wisdom that isn't lived soon fades back into memory. That's why this final chapter is about integration, turning everything you've learned into a daily rhythm that reshapes you from the inside out. Because emotional mastery isn't a single transformation. It's a practice, a way of living that grows stronger with consistency. So for the next 30 days, You will train your mind, body, and spirit to live this calm not just when you remember, but as your default state. Week 1. The Awareness Reset. Days 1, 7. Goal. Notice your triggers and master the pause. For the first 7 days, don't try to fix your emotions, simply watch them. Every time you feel a surge of frustration, fear, or irritation, say silently, "This is a reaction. Let me breathe." Use the stop method daily. Stop what you're doing the moment you feel triggered. Take a breath, inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 6. Observe what you're feeling without judgment. Proceed with awareness, not impulse. Journal each evening. What triggered me today? How did I react? What could I do differently next time? You're not chasing perfection, you're building awareness. By the end of week 1, you'll start catching yourself mid-reaction. That's your first victory. Week 2. Reframing and response. Days 8-14. Goal. Rewire your thinking and reshape your emotional meaning. Now that you can pause, you're ready to choose new interpretations. Every time a challenge arises, ask yourself, what else could this mean? Is this happening to me or for me? What lesson is hidden here? Practice cognitive reframing in writing. Take one emotionally charged event each day and write 3 alternative explanations that are equally possible. Watch how your brain begins to loosen its grip on negativity. Then, apply emotional labeling. Instead of saying, "I'm upset," say, "I'm feeling disappointed because my expectation wasn't met." Specificity equals clarity. Clarity equals peace. By the end of week 2, your brain will begin defaulting to logic before reaction. Week 3. Strengthening the body and spirit. Days 15-21. Goal. Build the physical and spiritual foundation that sustains calm. This week focuses on energy, not emotion. Sleep. 7-9 hours per night, same time daily. So, nutrition. Eat whole foods, high in protein and healthy fats. Avoid sugar spikes. Movement. At least 30 minutes a day, walk, stretch, or train. Breathwork or meditation 10 minutes daily to ground your nervous system. Silence. 10 minutes of screen-free stillness before bed. Also, begin your spiritual grounding practice. Whether it's prayer, gratitude journaling, or simple presence, spend a few minutes connecting with something greater than yourself. The goal isn't control, it's alignment. To remind your system that you are safe, supported, and guided. By the end of this week, your energy will stabilize. You'll notice fewer spikes of emotion and more natural balance. Week 4. Embodying Mastery. Days 20-30. Goal. Live your calm in motion. Become the eye of your own storm. Now it's time to practice everything under real conditions. Each morning begin with one grounding statement. Today I choose awareness over reaction. Then intentionally place yourself in small challenges. Handle a difficult conversation calmly. Respond slowly to an upsetting message. Delay judgment when someone frustrates you. Speak with gentleness even when you disagree. Each night reflect with these 3 questions. Did I lead myself through awareness or impulse? What did I learn about my patterns today? How can I show up calmer tomorrow? Finally, at the end of day 30, sit in silence for 5 minutes. Breathe slowly. Feel your heartbeat. And notice the calm that once felt like effort now feels natural. You've built a new baseline. Your mind obeys your awareness. Your emotions no longer hijack your peace. You've not only studied mastery, you've lived it. Final reflections. Emotional mastery isn't about silence. It's about ownership. You don't need fewer emotions. You need deeper awareness. You don't need to suppress pain. You need to understand it. And when you do, Life changes not because it gets easier, but because you get stronger. You'll begin to notice that people trust your energy more, that peace follows you into rooms that used to drain you, that calm becomes your default language. Because you've learned what few ever do. You can't control the world, but you can control the world within. So, when the world shakes, remember the calm person leads. Not because they dominate the storm, but because they've learned how to stand inside it without losing themselves. That is the ancient rule of not reacting first. That is emotional mastery. That is freedom. If this audiobook has helped you, share it with someone who needs it, and subscribe to Prestige Audiobooks, where every week we release new guides on mindset, resilience, and emotional strength. Because calmness is contagious, and it starts with you. The journey continues. Stay aware, stay grounded, stay calm,